Our Bible word is John 2, verse 5. His mother said to the servants, "Whatever he says to you, do it." So here we have an account of Jesus, and this is his first sign in the Gospel of John. That's how the Gospel of John refers to Jesus' miracles as signs. And Jesus was at this wedding feast in Cana of Galilee. And the first portion of the Gospel of John is also referred to as the Book of Signs. And that specifically refers to chapter 1, verse 19 to chapter 12, verses 50. And in this Book of Signs, Jesus performs 7 signs. And of course, in Jewish tradition, the number 7 is the number for perfection or completion. And the signs culminate in the most important sign, which is the raising of Lazarus from the dead, because that prefigures Jesus' own resurrection. And these signs of Jesus, they reveal who he is. They reveal his character, and they reveal his divine identity as the Son of God. So this is where we are. We're in the Book of Signs, and where these 7 signs or miracles of Jesus is related. And now we are in Cana in Galilee, and Jesus is at a wedding. And we also read here that his mother was there, his brothers and his disciples also. And I just want to give you some background about how marriage and betrothal operated at this time. It's unlike today. Today people fall in love. There's romance and wine and roses and gifts and all that, and period of courtship. That's not how it worked at all in the time of Jesus when it came to marriage. Marriage was something arranged by the families, and this was arranged by the parents. And normally there would be negotiation about a contract. The fathers, they would set up the contract, how it will work, and when the terms of the agreement or the contract has been set, and then also there is what is known as betrothal. And so there was this negotiation between 2 families. Think of it, there's the honor of this family, of the groom, and there's the honor of the wife. And now their honors, or the honors of these 2 families, become fused. They honor their social status is also linked to this, by marriage, to this family and their honor status. So it was more about an economic transaction also, because economics or your wealth was part and parcel of honor at this time. And also, I mean, for leaders it was also political, to make political friendships through marriage. And already from an early age, boys and girls were earmarked, you're going to marry so-and-so, and you're going to marry so-and-so. And so there would be betrothal. In other words, they would be sanctified or be set apart for marriage. You are dedicated to that man or to that woman, etc. So at this stage, they did not live together as husband and wife, but they were betrothed to one another. And also, this betrothal, you just cannot say it's over. A formal divorce was required, a legal divorce, even though they were not married. If there's a betrothal between a man and a woman, then there must be a legal divorce to stop that future marriage from taking place. So, and girls already from the age of 12, from 12 to 16 got married, and boys already at the age of 17. So it happened at a very young age already. And what would happen is, so where, especially the girl, where she was part of the honor of her father's household, she would be disembedded from that honor, and then she would become embedded in the honor and the family of her husband. And there she would also come to represent the family's shame. And shame was also to be used as a means to protect family honor. So if she does something wrong, she will also bring shame to the family. But positive role also is she must be faithful to her husband, etc. And she must also help protect the family honor. And the wife will also always be on the periphery of the family, so to speak. But when she produces a son, then her status improves somewhat in the family, because she now provides a future heir for the family. So through that, the status will improve in the family. So because there was really no romance, and it was really an economic transaction between two families, the wife's relationship or emotional relationship, connection, was mostly with siblings, her brothers and sisters, or with other women. It was not so as for the husband necessarily, because the domain of men and women, they were separate at this time. And also, when she had a son, her closest relationship she'll ever have will be with her son. Because her son, he will be the guarantee for her to have food, to have a place to stay, etc. That's why it was also shameful at this time for women to be on their own. So that's why women who are divorced or even widows, they had sometimes a tough time because they were not with a man. Because women were always embedded in some or other man. In other words, under the authority, under the household of a man, be it a father, a husband, etc. And that's just how things worked at this time. So marriage would be where she is disembedded from the honor of her father's household and embedded into the household of her husband. And of course, marriage is the public ceremony where that takes place. And weddings, they were joyous occasions, and the host had to make sure there was lots to eat, lots to drink, and the whole village was invited, family and relatives were invited, as many as possible, because it was also a display for others. It's how you display your honor and your wealth. And also, these feasts, they would last up to 7 days. For up to 7 days, there would be feasting and the celebration of this union between the husband and the wife. So that's the background now to this wedding. So Jesus was there, his mother was there, some of his disciples, and that also says his brothers were there at this wedding. And this is now the first sign that Jesus will perform. And now there's a crisis. Mary, Jesus' mother, comes to him and tells him, there's no wine. And this would be a big embarrassment for the host, especially the family of the bridegroom, because they had to ensure there's more than enough to eat and to drink for those 7 days. And his honor would be tainted. I mean, for years to come, people will remember him. Do you remember that wedding there? They didn't have enough wine. Oh, being shame to the family. So now Mary comes to Jesus and says, they have no more wine. And then Jesus says to her, woman, what does your concern have to do with me? My hour has not yet come. So that word woman, the Greek can be more properly translated as madam or ma'am. So it was a form of respectful address, especially for a married woman who's also a mother. I mean, her status would be higher than an unmarried girl or a maiden. So Jesus is saying here, ma'am, madam, what does your concern have to do with me? My hour has not yet come. So the hour that Jesus is referring to here, specifically his hour of suffering. The hour when he will be crucified. So he's saying, I'm not yet at that stage where I'm embarking on my ministry that will lead to this hour of my crucifixion, of my death. So that time has not come yet. But Mary, she goes ahead and she tells the servants, if we now come to our Bible word, his mother said to the servants, whatever he says to you, do it. So Mary is quite confident that Jesus will perform this task, because it's to save the honor of the hosts. Otherwise there will be great embarrassment for them. So Jesus then performs this miracle. And now if you go to verse 6, it says there, now there was set there 6 water pots of stone, according to the manner of purification of the Jews, containing 20 or 30 gallons apiece. Now these stone vessels, as it says, it was for water, and stone vessels were used at this time widely by Jews because it was believed they could not contract ritual impurity. A clay vessel, if it contracted ritual impurity, they had to be smashed. They can't be used anymore. But it was believed stone was impervious to ritual impurity. And it was for water, so it was probably for ritual washing of hands, or maybe for ritual immersion, etc. And it says there they had 20 or 30 gallons apiece. And now this amounts to over 150 liters of water. So Jesus gives the instruction, fill it to the brim with water. And so they filled the water pots with water. And then Jesus commanded in verse 8, and he said to them, draw some out now and take it to the master of the feast. So the master of the feast, he was the person responsible for all the arrangements. He had to make sure that the wine and the food is apportioned properly, and not people don't drink too much at the beginning, etc., that everything runs smoothly. And of course he gets the wine and he comments that, well, you saved the best for last. Because as weddings go, people will maybe drink too much at the beginning and get a bit tipsy or whatever, and then you bring out the bad wine. So normally it was the good wine first, and then as time progresses, the bad wine you bring later. But now the master of this ceremony or the wedding, he says, well, you've already brought the good wine now. So Jesus, his first sign here, his first miracle, of course it's over 150 liters of wine that he created through this miracle. And also there's another element to play here, because water pots, it was for something sacred. It was for water here, for ritual purification. So it was not entirely proper. It's a bit like taking a Holy Communion cup and using it for beer. Then somebody will tell you, hey, what you doing? That's not for beer, that's for something holy and sacred. So something similar is happening here. Jesus is using this sacred vessel, so to speak, or for a sacred purpose, for ritual purification. And Jesus uses it to make wine for the wedding feast. So Jesus creates an abundance of wine here, over 150 liters. There's more than enough. And that's also symbolic for Jesus in his ministry. He creates abundance of salvation, abundance of life. If you also read that in John 10 verses 10, Jesus says that I have come that they may have life and may have it abundantly. And now the important thing also here is, if we read in verse 11, it says, this beginning of signs Jesus did in Cana of Galilee, and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him. So through this first sign and also the subsequent signs, Jesus reveals his divine glory, his identity as the Son of God. And of course it was fully revealed also through his death and resurrection. And also importantly, signs engender faith. It brings about faith. His disciples already believed in him, if you read John. But yeah, specifically because of the sign that Jesus performed. It says here, the disciples believed in him. They can see there's something special here. He's the divine Son of God.